Okay, welcome everyone. I am just going to invite Prashansa to join in so that we have. Interesting. Not sure why it's doing this. Okay. Technology. Okay. Yes. Hello, everyone. Happy Sunday. Happy Sunday afternoon for those of you who are in India. Trying this once again. I'm sure we will be able to join very quickly. I know you're all very excited about this live. I've gotten lots of messages from so many people who love Mirzapur, the series, the character development, the writing, the nuance, the depth. I got into it a little bit late, but देर आए दुरुस्त आए. And I know you all know I'm in Bombay and I am focusing on a lot of my book and the nuances of my book, but I want to do deeper conversations with people who think deeply about these issues. So waiting for Prashansa to also join us, and then we will take this conversation forward. There she is. I hope she can accept the invite. Can you? You're unable to join. Okay. Not sure why. Ah, okay.
Finally.
Finally. Lovely to see you, Prashansa. I am so honored that you were able to join us. You are able to join me, and of course, everyone in my audience and everyone in your audience who's so excited about going very deep. I don't know if you know, but I got like so many DMs about just, of course, Mirzapur as a show about you.
I'm so glad and I'm so happy that people want to tune in and have these conversations with us. Of course, I've followed your work, as you know, for years, and I feel like you're doing something so important and bringing awareness to things that we don't talk about in society. And so, thank you for doing this with me.
Most welcome, honored. Let's dive right in and then kind of flow as we converse, Prashansa. So
Yeah.
so folks, I'm sure you know, you have been following Mirzapur from the beginning. So many people know the show way deeper than I do. But Prashansa, what would you like people who may be a little bit unfamiliar with you and your character and just you as a person, what would you like them to know? Why don't you do a little introduction for us?
Hi, so I play Radhiya, who plays the help in the Tripathi family house. And my character has been through a lot of sexual abuse and violence. And I am now in the third season. The violence and the sexual abuse has reduced and almost gone because the characters who abuse me are dead. But there is a beautiful arc about this character and what a person or a character goes through after facing so much sexual abuse and so much violence
Yeah.
from a very young age. And I want to bring light to that. She's not just a
Yeah.
victim of sexual abuse. She is a whole person, and it's not the only thing that defines her.
Thank you so much. So that makes a lot of sense. How, and before I move into the questions about that, for folks who may not know me, I am a sex therapist, folks. My name is Neha. I run a platform called Indian Sex Therapist, which is basically a free psychotherapy access toolkit for anybody who's interested in going deeper into depth psychology. Also have a book that's come out that is called Unashamed, and oh my gosh, lovely.
It's a beautiful book, and I would just tell everyone to read it. It's absolutely it's been a very difficult but a beautiful experience reading it because I had to read it in 3 days. I do not read this in 3 days. Uh, but it's so impactful, and there is so much that I understood and learned from it. There are beautiful exercises that you can do. It's really a, a path towards healing. I'm not saying you'll heal after this book, but I'm saying that it is a way to look into your life and your experiences and really sit with them. And she talks about it a lot, and she just, there are beautiful examples that she has worked with her clients, and it's just such a beautiful journey that they've been on with you. So I think this is a book that everyone should read about, and it talks about shame and abuse, and it also talks about your general well-being. So even if you haven't been through any of these things, just to become aware of that in society is so important. So yeah, I would really say everyone should just really read this book.
That is so sweet, Prashansa. And I mean, more than sweet. I know you mean it, and most importantly, I think why we are doing also this conversation is because there is just so much information out there about words like trauma, mental health, sexual abuse, sex for Indians. And that's wonderful because even 10 years ago, we didn't have any of that, right? So with the
Absolutely.
OTT and with Instagram kind of skyrocketing in India, there has been just so much information overload that's happened in the last even 5 years, I would say. However, there's generally a lack of deep knowledge available about these topics. And so what I love about Mirzapur, and also why I found it hard to also, just like Unashamed, finish it in 3 days or finish it in the timeline that we were going to speak, is because it's such a complex show and the characters have so much depth. So it does require one to really invest one's time, just like it would be for healing,
Yeah.
for a healing journey, right?
And
You're back. Yeah. Your audio's gone. Sorry. Yeah, you're back.
okay, I'm back. Sorry, I have a limit of how much I can be on Instagram.
Oh, good. Wise.
So
Wise.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's why the show is so different, and that's what people don't realize is why we are at season 3 right now, is because every character is written with so much depth and so much understanding, and I think that's rare
Yeah.
to come across a show where every character has that depth, you know. And the second thing that you spoke about, which is words like trauma and shame, which is now, I mean, we have brought awareness to it, but it's also, like you say in your book, like healing is not it's not like just, it's not magic.
No.
It's a very painful process,
Yes.
and people don't talk about it. And even if you intellectually understand and accept what's happened to you, it takes months and sometimes years to kind of feel it through in your body and to understand it and to overcome it. And even then, I don't know what the answer to this is. So I would like to ask you, actually, that my character who's been through so much sexual abuse, like what would healing look like for her? Because the first the first idea of touch is violence, right? The idea of intimacy is violence, and abuse. And please correct me if I'm not using these terms in the right way. But what would healing look like for her? Because because healing right now, the poster of healing is this girl sitting in a bathtub putting 100 products on her face, and
Right.
I don't know if I identify with that.
Right. Beautiful point. And no, none of the terms you used were out of context. They were super proportional to what you're talking about. So just wanted to give you affirmation, validation for that first as we talk about this. Like, it makes sense what you're saying. And I think the biggest problem is exactly what you said, that healing is now portrayed as self-care only, and self-care looks like a very capitalistic idea, of course, of what that self-care means, which I'm not criticizing that idea only. Yes, that's necessary. We need to take care of ourselves physically. But there are also stages and nuances to literally what you said, which is that when someone's first experience of touch has been violent, not even unsafe, but violent. And let's go to some statistics. It's 1 in 3 and 1 in 6, 1 in 3 women and 1 in 6 men per minute.
Wow.
Have been sexually violated. These are US statistics. I'm using American statistics because our Indian ones are not so deep yet. They will be there soon this year. But there is that much violence in society, and then we expect people to just get over it, move on, shut up, don't say anything, kuch mat bolo, uncle ne kiya, uncle creepy nahi hai, auntie kuch aise nahi kar sakti aapke saath, don't go, theek hai to shaadi mein mat jana, don't hug them, what's the problem? It's very much like, just move on. Trauma is not the goal of your life. Move on, move on. By the time you move on and you think like, okay, cool, I can compartmentalize it, a person feels that way, then they get sort of married, or they go into a relationship, or you're having sex, even with yourself, you're masturbating. There is this major trigger, that is the word trigger in its right context, that comes in, that takes us back into the flashback of that first touch. So we'll come to the healing in a bit, but that's why I think I loved the character's arc so much in Mirzapur 3 specifically, that there was like so much sort of attention paid to how complex that journey is.
Yes.
Inside.
Yeah, and in third season, it's not like I'm using my independence to now. Like the first thing I'm doing with my independence and the freedom that I've gotten, and the fact that I'm not going to be abused, and the only times you see me kind of very, very scared is even this little idea that if we go to that other house, will I get sexually abused again, or will you get sexually abused again?
Yeah.
And what I also found is like this wonder, the sense of wonder that she had lost, that like a little girl who didn't know what she liked or what her preferences were, and she's never had the opportunity to explore that, and to be able to explore that through this character has been absolutely beautiful. And there is so much pain and so much there is so much that she carries. Like even now on set, so many times while playing this character, if somebody came and touched me from behind for something, like I could feel it. Like I could feel like my body was just not okay with that touch, And like you said, these triggers, I mean, they're there throughout our lives, and they come into our marriages or our intimate relationships. And I mean, I'm around so many people right now who are going through intimacy issues because of abuse and violence, and we don't talk about it. And I think in society, when we say things like you said, like unke shadi mein mat jana ya mat baat karo, I think you also in a way become part of that, right? Abuse, because you're shutting it off, so you're allowing the next generation to also be able to do that. And that is not something that is happening in some village in India, which is so foreign to us. It is happening in cities, it is happening in the best of places, it is happening everywhere. And like the statistics say, I mean, it is horrible. It is horrible. I don't know one woman that I've met who has not been through sexual violence, not one. And many, many men, of course.
Yes. Trans people as well. In fact, their rates are higher, and there's under the research is very less on sexual violence and transgender folks. So just to clarify what we're saying, folks, we're saying that it's not some taboo conversation anymore. It is literally in our homes. It is all around us, and shows like Mirzapur, which are well written and go deep into such subjects, can really shine a light onto your own journey if it brings it up as you're watching such a show, right? And so, Prashansa, like, is there something you want people to know about Radhiya's survivorship specifically? And if you could just make it like simple in terms of like, what is this character's arc? Who was she? Who is she now?
I mean, she grew up in a family where, the idea of touch or love or sex was not celebrated or not even introduced to her, right? It was something that was done behind closed doors, and no one spoke about it. And then she was forced to go and work because of her family's financial situation. So entering this house, she did not know what's going to be her life, and it is just getting abused again and again by powerful men in that family who would kill her. I mean, the consequences are unthinkable, and she either does that or she's killed. And her arc has been beautiful in a way that she at the end of season 2 gets to kill one of those powerful men. The other one dies, and it's the first time she receives justice. But also what that does to a character is very confusing, right?
Very confusing.
Like, what is abuse? What is happening to me? Is this right or wrong? And I feel like only when she sees Veena, who's Rasika Tukal plays her really well. Only when she sees her go through the same thing and the impact that it has on her, that she understands that something wrong is happening with me.
Right.
And and the whole thing of abuse is so confusing, right? Like, you feel like, did I do something? Is it my fault? Could I have avoided this situation? Maybe if I didn't wear this, or if I didn't look like this, or if I didn't say this, or maybe I could have just not been abused. And I think, I mean, please talk about this, because I feel like this is universal in so many women who talk about abuse, especially when it's at a young age.
Thank you for literally hitting the trigger points of sexual violence. First is the survivor thinks कि मेरी गलती थी, मैंने किया है. Second is मैंने ठीक है, where shall I go now? Even if I have done this, where should I go? Who is a safe person for me to now share this? Okay, best friend or mother or father. Most of the times in our society, best friend is also similar age group. So what can that best friend do other than giving a healing, consoling ear? Even that is wonderful. But many times, many friend groups are not able to even contain the depth of what has happened because they themselves are in the same boat of not understanding. Radhiya had Bina, but many people have nobody. On top of it, there is the third point, which is that parents and so families are encouraged, which is what we were saying earlier, to enable the cycle of shame. That yes, it was your fault. First of all, you only must have done something to cause this. Even if you didn't do something to cause this, just get out of the perpetrator's way, because getting into reporting is a major problem. And I have empathy for that. Of course, our legal systems are so far behind catching up the pace of a survivor's justice need that
Right.
you people often either don't take justice or take justice in their own hands, which is what your character is showing, that she took justice in her own hands, which is now, of course, nobody is saying, guys, that you have to go and kill anybody. Nobody's condoning this.
Please don't kill people. It's not.
Please, no, that's not the point. But the point is that cycle of abuse is a real thing. And that is exactly what Unashamed talks about, that how people who then survive, do not get healing, end up re-perpetrating acts of violence. Now, Radhiya chose to murder, but in our everyday daily lives, we can choose to slap, we can choose to break things in the house. We can choose to say, well, I'll take my bhadas out on, I shouldn't say bhadas because it's quite a condescending word, but I will take my trigger, flashback, rage out on my children. This happens a lot in
Yes.
households. You'll see
And on
parents
people you love,
and on people you love.
because
And
they'll
then
take
which
it.
leads to, yeah, sorry, which then leads to no access to pleasure, right? Because I have really, I'm stuck in this cycle of violence, I'm stuck in the cycle of shame. It's confusing for me. Do I deserve pleasure? Do I not deserve pleasure because I'm a horrible person for re-perpetrating this act? But actually so much happened to me which is not even looked at.
Right.
So this is the complexity of the cycle of sexual abuse and shame.
And like beautifully said, and adding to that, what does that do to a person's, like, how do you trust another person again? How do you have confidence in yourself, in your own body, and in society? You just lose faith, I feel, so many times in the world, where you do something as drastic as murder, or
Yeah.
I'm not saying people do that, but I'm saying then it comes out in such different ways, because I think inside you just don't trust the world anymore.
No, no, exactly. And people do that. Those are extreme forms of violence. Many people come to lower forms of violence, but the point is exactly what we're making, that if you are identifying this kind of violence in yourself and you're watching shows which are well made and you're like really engaged in the topic of sexual abuse, you will not be able to take your eyes off of how much of a crisis it is for us, as Indians in our country, where it has been repressed. The topic has not been given any air.
Yeah.
So then we have writers, directors trying to make content on it, which is lovely. But again, to the earlier point, what ends up happening is that people write about the healing journey as a one quick fix, one session with a therapist, one healing workshop, and that person has a breakthrough, and then it's like, cool, I will never hurt anyone again in my life. And guys, it's not like that at all. It is complex. It goes through ups and downs. It takes years. That doesn't mean you have to be traumatized for years, but what it means is the scar remains, and that is natural. So
Right.
let's be more compassionate towards survivors in our own family, but towards our own survivorship also. Let's not rush.
Absolutely. I feel like, just hit the nail on the walls. You cannot rush it. And I feel like the second we start talking about it, and we start talking about our own abuse, and we think that, okay, this is a quick fix, and, now we are cured and we are healed. And there is no cure, because it's not like there is something wrong with you. But to be able to sit with it, like you say in your book so beautifully, and there are such amazing exercises that I'm going to go back into, which kind of bring to light of what is happening inside your body. And there is so much stored in our bodies that we don't even know. And we have no awareness. And in this age of, we're constantly running around, there's Instagram, there is so much happening. We just don't get that time to kind of look within ourselves. And I feel like that is so important, and you talk about it so much in your book, and I really want people to know that that is kind of where the journey begins, right? It is through our bodies, and to see what is stored in our bodies.
Yes, The Body Keeps Score is a great book also to read if folks are interested, to listen to. Which leads me to Prashansa. When we decided we are going to speak about this topic, I did look at your Instagram and I saw that there were so many poisonous comments on what an abuse survivor goes through, and people were of course projecting it as if it's your story. A lot of audiences were doing that, but there was also just mimicking the dialogues of the perpetrator and just throwing it onto your comment section.
Right.
What is that like for you?
So honestly, when it happened, the first time it happened was after season 2. I used to feel very ashamed about it because this was my page and this is where I show myself as an artist and as an actor. And suddenly I had these comments which I feel are violent. And so I would sometimes try and delete them and report them. And it reached a point where I just couldn't report and delete every comment. And I also thought and sat with myself and said, why am I ashamed of this? This is a reflection of society today. This has nothing to do with me and my work. And what I am showcasing actually is what is happening in society. And we do not want to talk about it. It makes us uncomfortable. It makes us look at something we don't want to look at. And that's what I'm doing as an actor. These comments kind of, it's a beautiful reflection of where we are at with abuse, with rape culture, for example. And please talk about rape culture because I don't think many people know exactly what it is.
Yeah. Thank you. So sorry that this happens to you, that happened to you, but and like, I'm sorry for anybody else who's faced this, that you come out and speak something or you represent a character and you somehow get totally bought into that cycle of shame and abuse, and now it is your problem to carry society's shame. So that's the first point you said, which is then related to this internalized shaming tactic that then we put on ourselves as survivors, that I have to become small. I should stop taking roles like this. I should stop hanging out with that group of friends because they are shaming. I should stop going out in public. And this is how survivors lose their voice. It happens again and again. I work with survivors who were dancers earlier who don't dance anymore. Celebrities who were at the top of their career had had an experience of rape and were not able to act again. So, which relates to, guys, when you say things like, it's not your it's your fault that you didn't report it, and rape culture doesn't exist, it should only be individualistic, that is where we are missing the entire big picture. So which is what rape culture is. Rape culture doesn't mean your entire culture is toxic and something is wrong with you. It doesn't mean that. It means there are certain behaviors that every culture has. In rape culture, the behavior is silence around harm. So when someone harms you sexually, shut up. When someone causes you pain, let it go. Do not process it, and especially don't confront the person who has caused you pain. So yeah, if you've been raped or you've been assaulted, just take it. Take it as life's karma. This is rape culture. Okay, it doesn't mean something entirely is wrong with India. Nobody's saying that, or something's wrong with your whole family. No, that's not what is being said. We have internalized beliefs. The beliefs can only change if we acknowledge that the belief is there, which
Absolutely.
is where rape culture healing comes in. Yeah.
And like you said, if there is no acknowledgement of it, then there is no acceptance of it. And if there is no acceptance of it, we are carrying it in us through our bodies and through everything that we do. And it's in society, right? We are marrying people, we are with partners, we are with children, and that's where it goes. That's where all of it goes back. It goes back into society. So it's just a shame cycle that I think it perpetuates. And like, for example, in a film like Bandit Queen, where she's raped constantly, and there's a beautiful scene where it's the first time somebody is he's going to touch her with consent, and she can't take it. She just can't take it. It's the first man who has given her respect, has respected her body, who's asked her for permission, and it's too much of, and correct me if I'm wrong, too much of a trigger for her.
Yes, that's absolutely right. That is literally the definition of a trigger, where I am not able to accept even the good things that are happening for me because it's taking me back to the pain point of how painful it was the first time it, something negative happened to me. Which is where guys like the partners. So if you're like, oh, this conversation, is about rape culture, nothing to do with me. I'm not a survivor. I think that's where we go kind of wrong because it's mostly about what we don't do is we don't try to step into another person's shoes enough, which is where film and video and television is so powerful. Books are so powerful; they give us access to go into another person's reality that's not ours. But with survivorship, I want everybody to understand this, that it is literally all around you. If you take a moment to ask someone what their most safest and their worst sexual experience will be, you will get sexual trauma somewhere or the other there. Men, women, everybody. This is not related only to one gender, which is why when we don't understand why our partners are going through this, we think they're so hysterical and they're full of rage. And of course, it's very difficult to be in relationship with someone like that who has that much trauma. But it is also important to know why and then to do your work as the friend, as the partner, as the mother, as the sister, to just support that person to get to healing, right? Which is a slower process.
And
And
as
this
yourself.
this anti-rape culture, actually, if you do that, you are building nurturance culture, which is a beautiful word that somebody called Nora came up with. It's called nurturance culture. The opposite of rape culture is
Oh,
nurturance
that's
culture.
beautiful.
Yeah.
So you actually nurture the person to go on a journey of healing. Wow, that is, wow, I did not know that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think through the case studies in your book, where you talk about what your clients have been through, uh, there are so many, like this. There's this one case that stands out for me, which is this I forgot her name, but this woman who comes to for therapy to you, and she has no idea. She says she's not been through any sexual abuse, and then you realize that as a child there was an old man looking into her bedroom when she was changing, and that kind of stayed with her subconsciously, and it comes out in therapy. And what a powerful incident that is, that she was not touched. She had parents who were absolutely safe and supportive. She did not know. And
Exactly.
how did you, I mean, what do you have to say about an incident like that? Because I feel like when we talk about sexual violence and abuse and rape,
Yes.
we just talk about either penetration
Yeah.
or good and bad touch. We don't talk about things like this, which is, I think every woman, at least in India, has constantly lived through it and lives through it day in and out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, Kusha, that's chapter one, a chapter, I forgot which chapter, but it's a chapter on Kusha coming into therapy and
Yeah.
actually saying that I want to be touched, I desire touch, but I'm not being able to touch. It is chapter one, actually. And well, what I have to say about that is that it is one of the most important things that I have hope for, Prashansa, in the next 10 years of India rising. I do see that more and more power is being given to this country as a society. I have hope for it. So, because I have hope for it, I really want writers, filmmakers, directors, actors, mental health people, anyone who's listening to this conversation to actually now take this topic forward and explore not just the extremes, but the grays. And the grays are this, like watching somebody watching me when I was a child.
Right.
My mother was great, but I was not able to access any kind of processing around what happened, which is what Kusha said. That's
Yeah.
why she cannot access pleasure.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong again, but she thought it so inconsequential when it affected her life in
Entire life.
such a big way. Yeah.
Yes, yes, and
And
women, we know this, like everybody needs a healthy sexuality, whether it's asexuality and that's a
right.
conscious choice, that's fine. But everyone needs a healthy sexuality to feel emotionally and sexually and spiritually nurtured and fulfilled, whatever that means to them, right?
Absolutely.
So Kusha thought, oh, I'm just angry. Why am I so angry? And
Yeah.
then healing happened. And Radhiya basically, chose to become from very small to huge, like used her voice, used her body.
And actually, she did not go through as violence. In the third season, you see her reading books, reading poetry. Just her body kind of started changing because there was no uh, fear anymore to be around. And even though the fear is there in her body, it happened to me actually when I had a back problem in my 20s, and I could not understand why I have it, because I've been a really fit person. I do yoga and I'd done all kinds of things and it wouldn't get fixed.
Oh.
And I studied in Prague for a year, and 6 months into studying I said, oh, my back doesn't hurt anymore. um, Cut to coming back to Bombay 6 months later, my back was hurting again. And I realized it's because where I used to take public transport, I would always walk like this because there was so much shame around my body, right? And somebody looking at me or touching me, and I wanted to avoid that so desperately that I had developed a back problem. Uh, and
Powerful.
it is so interesting. And when I realized that, I realized, oh my God, there is, I mean, how do I even make sense of this if this is something I am going
Yes.
through? And I'm somebody who, you know, I have awareness about these
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, it's such a powerful example to bring up, even in relationship to your character, but in relationship to public life in India, and how we are so used to kind of living in a smaller body structure. We are living we used to covering tops of our bodies with three, four kurtas and salwars, and I mean, just sort of really being like, I have to protect myself from any gaze already when I go out, because I have to be vigilant. Somebody is going to attack me. And yes, we all can say, maybe certain members of a certain class of society can say that doesn't happen now, which is true, but it does. Overall, this is still a huge problem in public buses, trains. It's something that we really have to just build awareness around. It will, of course, heal by itself, but also it will heal when there are justice systems that are more trauma informed.
Yeah.
There are movies made for masses that are more trauma informed, that show light, throw light to the nuances of what you're saying, which is why this example is just, it's so lovely and relevant that you shared this. Thanks for sharing it. What a gift.
Thank you. And which is why I consciously really look at Radhiya's body, and how it kind of feels even in the room when he's like, the person who
Yeah.
has abused me is dead now.
Yeah.
But even when I used to go into that room, my body would just suddenly change because the memory of that room is in my body. It's stored in my body, and I can't get rid of it like that. When Guddu Bhaiya's character comes into the house, even though he doesn't do anything wrong to me at all, doesn't even look at me most of the times, that I, for me, every gangster is going to rape me. So when that's the only time when my body is really, really in a state of freeze, when he's around, and I could feel that around him, even though there is absolutely nothing happening. He's been good to me. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, and I feel like that's how trauma, we store so many things in our body, and
Yeah.
I think their book also talks about it.
Yeah, and I'll wrap some of this up by saying that some of chapter 5 also talks about couples therapy. So what happens when my partner is facing that, and I don't know she's facing that, or he's facing that, or they're facing that, and I take it personally because, why is she thinking that I am an unsafe man?
Yeah.
Or why is she thinking I'm an unsafe woman? I haven't raped you. I haven't hurt you. Of course, yes, and a natural response. But if now we don't understand the trauma spiral, we don't understand mental health, we don't understand sexual health deeply, we are just going to be like, oh, I have to break up with this person because they're just so intense, right? They don't make sense. My sex life is not good. But why and how, and the journey and the commitment that needs, healing is more painful than the act of perpetration itself, like the wound itself. I've written about this so many times, but really, it's so true. Like, healing hurts more because you have
Yeah.
to put all your parts together.
Yeah. Yeah, and thank you for making me aware of it years back. And there is so much I learned from your page, so thank you for that.
Any wishes you have for your character in terms of sexual violence and healing?
Yeah, I hope that in season 4 I'm able to bring some light into that,
Yeah.
and talk about her healing journey. or not, but talk about what actually happens in her body, or show it in a way that I do, which is through playing the character. And I hope people pay attention to that
Yeah.
and see these little things and how it stays in the body.
It would be lovely to actually see the character have access to proper healing, which then leads her to a different reality, rather than just this jump that, one therapy session or just something that wrong that happened, and then next time we're just seeing this character super happy. Like that link, I'm just like mirroring the wish that you have for your character, this wish that I have for Mirzapur, but as a series, but also for audiences to really access that. How do I move? And actually, because media has such a power in India,
it is, and so many people watch it,
Yeah, it's like a
and
single
we can,
opportunity to change some narratives. Yeah.
Like when I watched Bandit Queen, I was like, but why is she so triggered by this man? He's absolutely perfect. What is wrong with her? Until I questioned it and understood that there's nothing wrong with her. There is just yeah. And please, everyone, read this book. It's absolutely gorgeous. Whether you've been through abuse, not been through abuse, it doesn't matter. There's just so much, and it's so well written and so simply and written that it's so easy to understand. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Prashansa. This was like so lovely just to discuss these things deeply with you. First as a character, but first as a human being, but also as a character, as somebody who's had an arc in the show. This is not, your character didn't start with abuse and violence. She gets there. So even that is so interesting. The fact that you have accessed inner work for so many years, so your understanding is so deep about it also, is so helpful for the conversation to go deep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the writers and directors, like, just before we sign off,
Yes.
I mean, it could have just been a character that has been used in cinema for so long. If you look at 80s and 90s films, which has just been this rape victim, and that's what she is. And then the person who marries her, if that ever happens, she's so grateful to that person. She's just like, oh my God, my life is saved. But this character's journey is so different because she starts off being abused and being constantly raped, and is now going on her journey with herself and standing up for herself and kind of surviving through it all.
Would that be something we would consider like a closing thought, or would you want some to give out a few words of advice to your audiences, or maybe a warning also around the comment section? I don't know how you feel about that. Up to you.
Again, I can't stop people from commenting. So, but you can become mindful about how you comment and what you comment on, because there are people on the other side who are affected by it. And it also shows what you have to say about a character who has gone through so much. And I'm Prashansa. I play this character. Then I also have a whole life. I'm sensitive, which is why I'm an actor. There is a person behind it all. So please be mindful of anyone you write a comment for. Yeah, choose love, not hate. Like, I'll say the most 60s thing. But yeah.
Well, I want to mirror that and stand up for your character, stand up for you. And I just want to tell folks that please, it's just disgusting sometimes to see the kinds of things you say without even understanding what you're saying. So please don't objectify actors, don't objectify people in your own life, because it really reflects poorly on what you are doing in your own home. It really makes one wonder that if your girlfriend tomorrow would come and say that I have been hurt like this, what would you say to her, guys? And I'm speaking specifically to guys right now. And for women, let's please not dismiss the men who come to us and say that I'm not able to enjoy sexuality because something happened to me. Let's please believe our men. It goes both sides.
Absolutely.
Healing goes both sides.
And thank you for saying that. I think this was just this conversation was supposed to happen, I feel. And we must have characters like this, so we have more conversations like this, and we can make more people aware about it. Yeah.
I so look forward to that day when it's just the norm to talk about violence and abuse and show the healing also, not just the trauma porn angle that sometimes also, which we didn't touch today, but for another day. Yeah, like how it can just become trauma only, but no healing. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prashansa. This was lovely. Anyway, people can find you. outside of your Instagram account? Take a minute.
Just my Instagram account, my email is enough.
Okay.
If you want to write to me, I always look at emails. I do not look at DMs. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, well, folks, you know where to find me. Also Instagram, also email, website, and hopefully we'll have Prashansa back for more. And all the best with Radhiya. All the best with more and more characters that you play.
Thank you, and all the best with all the amazing work you've been doing and with this book.
Thank you so much, Prashansa.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I don't think we'll take any questions because, well, there are three. Just for 1 second, Didi, I'm a fan. Prashansa, I love you always. You're the most beautiful girl in Bollywood. And Join Me is another one, which we will ignore. Okay. Okay. All right, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Neha. Bye.
Bye.